with our program about the Kenyan election, the dilemma of a huge debt. We are, even if we are going to change the country, we are going to experience, the new president is going to experience a huge debt. And in the studio, I have Dr. Ndimu, who is a financial manager, for us to discuss about it. Okay, Dr. Ndimu, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, as I said, we are having a transition of government in Kenya, but it looks like there is a dilemma among Kenyans about the huge debt the country has. And this debt has increased so much since President Uhuru came to power. And the country is worried, as you know. So, in the last Madaraka Day, President Uhuru asked this question to Kenyans. When does borrowing become too much and unbearable for a nation? What would you say?
Thank you so very much again. I want to thank you for inviting me to the show. Again, let's start from what basically a debt is. A debt is when you borrow for a purpose to improve something and then you repay back. And countries like individuals do borrow money, mostly for their infrastructure purposes, to improve the economic well-being of the nation by building the infrastructure, and also somehow for those small economies to meet their recurrent budgets. Countries in the world that have borrowed over time and actually even overborrowing, if you will, are not even in Africa. You'll be surprised. Countries that are actually top 10 for borrowing are in the West. Japan tops the list as the most highly leveraged nation on earth, with 234% borrowing versus compared to its GDP. The US is not even top, it is actually top 10, the number 8 in borrowing. Guess where Kenya is? I'm not sure if you can guess. Kenya is not even top 20, not top 30, not top 50. It's actually number 75 when it comes to the GDP. So Kenya's borrowing and leveraging of borrowing hasn't really reached that alarming level that we are meant to live. So what we have and why we feel like our borrowing is not that good is what we do with the money we borrow.
Exactly.
We're not feeling it. We're borrowing so much, yes. But the purpose of borrowing has not been really been attained. So the intent of borrowing is to build the infrastructure. Are we building the infrastructure? Are we putting the money we borrow into the intended purpose of borrowing? That is the question Kenyans should be asking.
Okay.
So again, look at the US, for example. US has 21 and borrowed, leveraged 108% of its GDP. 108%.
Yeah.
Kenya, in contrast, is actually at 58% of its GDP. Very close to what Germany has. So
Okay.
I really want people to start talking about where the money goes and how much we're borrowing at this point in time.
Okay. One practical example of a country which actually is more similar to Kenya. We seem to still have an issue. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, we seem to be having still an issue. What? Hello?
Is there a delay?
Yeah, there is a delay.
Is there a delay?
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Okay. Okay. Hello? See there.
I can hear you very, very well.
Okay. Yeah, one of the countries which can be much more equated to Kenya, which is having a crisis right now, is Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka almost got independence like Kenya, and in 2005, President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who's actually the brother to the immediate outgoing president, took power and also went on a borrowing spree. He borrowed a lot of money and built many projects like railways, whatever, roads and ports. But now the country is in a crisis. So could Kenya, many people are equipped, we have seen many people are equipping Kenya to Sri Lanka. That is, Kenya might end up the same way.
I really don't know the case about Sri Lanka, and I can't talk about it. What I know for sure is if you borrow so much and you take the money and don't use it for the intended purpose, then you're likely to be in a crisis.
Yeah.
If you borrow money, say whatever millions, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So if you borrow money for, say, you're going to build a house, and then you're going to repay the house, the money, the profits, and whatever investment you're going to get from the house, the profits and whatever investment else are you going to get, and the money to repay the loan. So the reason why Sri Lanka, and I'm not sure what it is they borrowed money and they never used it and invested it wisely so that they get returns from the investment, then possibly they can be in a crisis. Kenya, for example, has been borrowing a lot of money. I'm not saying it's little money, a lot of money. But are we using that money for the intended purpose so that the country becomes more productive? Watch my words. The country becomes more productive. If the country becomes more productive than before, then the debt will not be a problem, because we are able to produce more money now to repay the loans back, while our standard of living improves. So in that case, if Sri Lanka is in a quagmire, I don't know about Kenya. Are we investing the money the same way we intended to invest when we borrowed the money? That's the question. Say, for example, we are borrowing money to build roads from Mombasa to Maraba, from Namanga to all the way to Turkana Road. Are we building those infrastructure? Are people able to make movement around, be more productive? Are we building and connecting people with electricity so they become more productive? Are we enhancing our education system? Are we connecting people to, say, internet to be more productive? If the answer is yes, then Kenya has not really overborrowed, because these people are going to be more productive, and the more productive we are, the more taxes we collect. The more taxes we collect, the more we are capable of repaying the loans.
Okay.
That makes sense. So in this case, actually, Kenya is at only 58% of its GDP. It's not even close to where the US is. The US is at 108%. Japan, 254%. Yet we borrow even from Japan. Remember, we go out borrowing from Japan. Japan is even more leveraged in terms of their borrowing. Yet we are borrowing.
Yeah, but at the end, Japan is the third largest economy.
Yet Japan is the third largest economy. The US is the largest economy that has borrowed more than, almost twice as much as Kenya has borrowed.
Yeah.
Actually twice.
So what would you advise the next president to do, like they would be faced with this debt?
I think the reason why we are feeling that we have borrowed so much is because we are not using the money where it was intended in the first place. So the next president must be able to sweep and make sure that the money that was borrowed was actually repatriated back, because people have used it in ways that they were never meant to use that money. Mostly, the money has gone into people's pockets. Mostly, the money has gone into people's personal investments. In that case, the next president's responsibility, the greatest responsibility, is to put infrastructures in place to ensure that money that has been stolen from those borrowings can be returned. So such that in the next borrowing, we are able to build upon that and therefore invest. So the greatest crisis we have in Kenya, you tell me, is not borrowing.
Yeah.
The greatest crisis is corruption.
Yeah, like
actually
Do you know, like the case of the Eurobond? Imagine Kenya, the government cannot account where the Eurobond went.
Exactly. And I was going to bring that up, and I was going to also bring up the most recent case where a sitting vice president actually confirms that it was not 21 billion that was lost, but it was a mere 7 billion. He stands there and confirms that nothing was lost except for 7 billion. As if 7 billion is pocket change.
It's peanut, yeah.
So that tells you that the stealing is so enormous that 7 billion is just pocket change.
It's pocket change to
And
them.
I trust the president when he said they are losing 2 billion every day. 2 billion every day to corruption, that's a lot compared to where our economy is.
Yeah.
Is there corruption in the West? Absolutely, yes. But is it at that level where it can cripple the economy? Absolutely not. So that's the whole difference there. And I was looking at the corruption index of these nations that have overborrowed and yet are really doing very well versus those that are like Kenya, for example. And I was surprised, actually. Japan, which has over-leveraged its borrowing, in the corruption perception index, is one of the most least corrupt countries on earth.
In the world.
In the world.
Yeah.
Least corrupt. Compared to Kenya, in a span and a ratio of 180 countries, Kenya is 128 at the bottom there.
I think we have tried. Kenya has tried. It used to be 140 something.
So what we have is not really overborrowing, in my opinion. My opinion is the next president. I'm not sure who that would be, but I'm hoping my praise is a ticket for change. Has the enormous responsibility of clearing this corruption we have. Otherwise, borrowing is not a big issue in Kenya today.
Well, on that same note, how would you fight corruption? I mean, because they say corruption fights back, and the corruption is really strong in Kenya.
Unfortunately, it's not an easy route, and the best example we have was in Singapore, when they started off in the 50s as a nation, and how they were fighting back that corruption, and how they were able to slay that corruption in Singapore. And also we can take Denmark, for example. Denmark is a small country in Europe, which is #1 in corruption-free index, perception index. It's #1, and consistently #1 for many years. And when you take those two countries and as a case study, Japan and Denmark, and look at their culture they have, their culture, if you immerse into their culture, you discover that there is what we call a national culture, which it permeates into community cultures, and it permeates into households, and then we call them household cultures, where even when your name is mentioned as corrupt in Japan, in fact you take a rope, go hang yourself before you bring a cop.
Yeah.
So that culture,
that's so serious.
Until we bring that culture back into the those of us who were born and raised in the 70s, I remember even in the village where people would put their assets out in the field and nobody will touch it. These days are here. You cannot even leave your produce in the field. People just steal it the same night.
Yeah.
I don't know where that culture came from.
Hello. Hello. We seem to be having. I think this must be from my end. I don't know.
I can hear you very well, but
yeah, we are having sound, but our video is frozen. Again, now it's last time we had an issue with
the audio.
The audio, but now it's the video. It's let me see here. It's serious because we are like people can hear our voice very well. What? Let me see here. I think there's something wrong. Huh. we could have said somebody doesn't want this information to be aired, or what is, are they sabotaging it from somewhere? Because I don't know. I've sent to the technical team to identify what's going on. Looks like it's frozen. Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah,
Yes, I can hear you.
so yeah, we can continue to talk. Remember that it's not showing video, it's only showing these, I don't know.